They say it's easier to change the shape of the world than it is to change one person's mind. Yet somehow you succeed to transform a client's mind. What makes you or your practice different?
Well, let's see how I can answer this question. What makes me or my practice different, I would have to say I put such great importance on educating the client. I believe that education is such a key factor in a client's journey when they endure such an emotional difficulty, such as going through a divorce or anything related to their family law issues concerning the legal system. So I would say educating them, empowering them with knowledge, because it's not so much that I transform the client's mind, but I would have to say that once they're empowered with knowledge, that's what changes their own thinking of making informed decisions, which ultimately benefits them and helps in the process of figuring out what the next step is for them.
That's the transformation I was actually talking about.
Oh yeah, definitely that's what makes me different for sure.
You're known to never soften your beliefs, and your performance is pitch perfect. Does it come easy?
Well, let me say this. I have an issue with the word perfect. As far as performance being pitch perfect, I'll tell you, not softening beliefs, to me it still comes from the client. Once you understand what the client's needs are and the client is equipped with the knowledge that the client needs, it's so vital for them to understand what's going on, because you don't want them to be in the dark. When a client comes and sees me, they just look at you for answers. And as much as I want to give it to them, I need them to understand what's going on. So once they do, and I am now in a better position to understand their situation from their perspective, because that's what matters, that's what's key. And once you have the facts are so sensitive and they're so important in what I do. And once the facts are laid out in a way where the client understands themselves as far as the consequences for these facts, because that's when I come in and I explain to them what the legal issue is in relation to the fact, which is their life story. And when I do that, that's what makes, in my opinion, my performance perfect, if you want to call it perfect. It's perfect for that client because I'm now equipped with the facts as they live it. And I'm able to genuinely, wholeheartedly present that to, whether it's the opposing counsel, whether it's the judge, wherever I am as their representative, I'm genuinely presenting what is their story.
And of course, it makes the case stronger.
It does make the case stronger because I want you to imagine this. You're a judge. You don't know anything. And if I'm able to paint a picture for you of the story, what stays with you? You get to see this person. It's not about the attorney. It's about the client. It is about what they're going through. And a lot of times when you're in the legal system, their story is lost, and I like to make sure that it is heard instead.
Alice, does a favorable ruling or an outcome depend on a meticulous argument? You seem to be passionately engaged with all your cases.
Well, this is an interesting question, Arshalus, I have to admit. How can I answer it in a way that I can address everything I want to say about it? There's so much I want to say. First, I want to say it depends on your audience, number one. Who am I addressing? Am I addressing an opposing attorney? Am I addressing somebody at a mediation? Is it a private mediation where it's a judge? Or am I in a courtroom in front of a judge? So given the fact that it matters who the audience is, meticulous argument, sometimes it's determined by how you present your case. And based on my experience over the past, I don't know, I guess 10 years you want to say, I've noticed that when you're genuine about what you say and you're passionate, your voice is heard differently. The judge even tunes in and says, you know, wait, I want to see what counsel has to say. And so it really matters about personability too. So definitely, yes, the argument plays a huge role in how you deliver it. But again, if you don't have the facts, and a lot of times I have to say people are busy, attorneys are busy, nobody really has time to talk to the client. That's where I stop. I say, you know what, I don't care if I'm going to spend that extra hour. I need to speak with the client myself. So that's kind of what I do. I make sure that I hear them. And a lot of times, I'll tell you, client wants to be validated. A lot of the times they can't hear you until you give them the acknowledgement that, you know what, I hear you, I understand.
And I care.
And I care. And let me tell you why I'm going to say something different if it's not related, because it really matters when a client is so determined about what they want to say. Sometimes they forget and they lose focus that we're not going to go in front of a judge for that reason, and they need to understand and be counseled and be prepared. You want to prepare them for court, and that's the key, I find, where sometimes it's not the argument, sometimes it is just simply the facts are not in your favor. And if the client understands that, then they have realistic expectations. So, to answer that question, a meticulous argument all depends on how it's presented, and sometimes it's fact-driven. So who's to say what a meticulous argument is? It all depends on perspective. But definitely you're in the legal world, depends who hears you, who listens, and people forget that judges are human beings. And I tell my clients, you are going to be judged. Not in my office. I don't judge in my office. I listen, I try to help you, I advocate. But when you're before the court, that's what the judge's job is. It says judge. That's what the judge is going to do. So it's all of it together, I would say. Yeah.
Alice, you are uniquely qualified to offer legal representation and mediation in all aspects of family law. What are the challenges that you face on a daily basis?
Wow, the challenges. I'd love to have like 5 more family law attorneys sit here and answer this one. Let's take the legal representation first, and then I'll do the mediation, right? It's kind of like a twofold question.
It is.
As far as legal representation, I'd have to say the nature of what we do is very emotional, and it's very personal. And so you have to just accept the fact that you are involved already in a very, very intimate situation for the client. So dealing with that emotional state of a client, which is almost all the time. When I say emotional, I don't mean they're necessarily crying all the time. They're angry, they're upset, sometimes they're crying, sometimes they're just, vengeful, given certain circumstances that they had to endure. And sometimes children are involved, and if you're dealing with custody issues. So trying to balance the legal representative of side with the counselor at law side. I do both very, very much equally as best as I can, because a lot of times what attorneys forget to do is to counsel them. And going through law school, doing a lot of internships, I did a lot of work before I even decided to just jump in and be an attorney. And I saw that firsthand from a different perspective of a counselor, a psychologist. And although I do know my role is one of an attorney ultimately, it's important to counsel them and say, okay, allow them to feel, but do it in such a way that it's productive, it's efficient, and you're not dismissing their emotions. You see, that's the challenge. So
Sure is.
in terms of, the work is work. The work is challenging as it is. You have your deadlines, you have your emotions, then you have your client that needs to, be cooperative with you with the deadlines. So there's that aspect of just the daily,
sometimes they are not.
They're just not, no.
Right?
And those are the difficult ones. But most of the time, I'll tell you, I don't know if it's luck, I don't know, but I love all my clients. Most of the time, I always get a good batch. I always say I have a great relationship with them. They're good people usually, and I just have a positive experience. They on me and I on them.
I just wanted to say that it's mutual.
It's mutual, and you know what? It's such a privilege and an honor to have that response from a client. It makes me do it again and again and again. So that's the challenge. I really don't want to ever feel that I somehow made them feel that they couldn't tell me something that they wanted, okay? But at the same time, kind of balance it. With mediation, same thing. Mediation's really hard in terms of you have everybody in the same room and you have to deal with clients who are participating voluntarily, and you want to make sure that this person's not going to get pissed off and leave, and you know, you jeopardize the whole agreement. So balancing personalities on a daily basis, learning to deal with it and not take it home, I would say, for mediation. But for the most part, I just love what I do so much that the challenge just comes with the territory.
And that's the key to your success.
Well, I hope so. I hope so. I'm still going.
Each of us is shaped by our heritage, our community, our family. In turn, we leave a lasting impression on those we've touched. That's what makes a life. That's what makes a legacy. Celebrate your life your way with Glendale Funeral Home. Customized services that honor your memory, created to fit you. Glendale Funeral Home. How do you want to be remembered?
International Families Association is a non-profit organization. Կազմակերպություն, որ տարիներ շարունակ ծառայում է ի նպաստ ցածր եկամուտ ունեցող ընտանիքների։ Յուրաքանչյուր երկուշաբթի եւ չորեքշաբթի օրերին կեսօրից հետո ժամը 2-ից 5-ը տրամադրվում է անվճար ուտելիք եւ այլ ապրանքներ։ Ընդունվում է ամեն տեսակի հովանավորություն։ Մանրամասների համար զանգահարել 818 770 0779 հեռախոսահամարով։ I'm sure the viewers would love to know what to expect upon signing a retainer with you.
Well, this one's going to be particular me because I do have my specific set of boundaries that I place. So with a retainer, there's a whole process that goes on before the retainer even becomes a question. I'm very, very, very much a believer in a proper consultation. So even when a client comes in, and you know, my office staff can attest to this, and they're like, they're ready to hire you. They just want to come. They just want to hire you. So-and-so referred them. I'm like, well, they need to do a consultation still, regardless, and then let them decide if they want to hire me. So that's part of the requirement that I have, is I want them to know why they are hiring me before they come and cut a check to me. Because a lot of times, like I said earlier in your questions, which was so good that you asked me that firsthand, because I can refer to it and say, you know, I educate them. So first of all, let's understand what options you have. We discussed that. Then once we narrow it down through a consultation process, then I'm comfortable if they retain me. So that's one. Once they do get to that step and they retain me, I ask for the same respect back. I say, look, this is a team effort. I'm going to need you to do. If you expect excellence out of me, I expect the same out of you when it comes to cooperation. So this is kind of where the foundation is kind of firmed. You know, becomes firm at this stage, which is the outset of our relationship starting as an attorney-client, and so. The client is so clean and clear about what to expect in terms of their role and my role, and then we proceed. So that's pretty much my prerequisite.
Attorney representation and its scope, reality versus perception.
You want me to elaborate on this? Okay. Well, let's see how I could respond to the reality and perception. Let's take that first. The expectation and the perception are kind of, they kind of go hand in hand. It's kind of like, how can I want to give an analogy. You know, for those of you who've remodeled their homes, it usually costs more and takes longer. It's pretty much that.
Yes, yes.
Okay, but you end up with the product you want or the house that you want. So it usually, the expectation or the perception is they feel that, oh, their issues are going to be, their questions are going to be answered, addressed, and no problem. But they forget the small thing called the reality, which is it doesn't work like that. It's an issue at a time, and each issue costs money. And that's where the client feels vulnerable, because a lot of people who have the rights don't have the funds to back it up. And so they're left with less options. And this is why it's so important for them to know that from the very beginning, because they are the best advisors for themselves as to what is the best course of action that they should take once they're informed. And so expenses and costs are definitely going to be based on what it is that they want to accomplish. And a lot of the times what their expectation is, well, I want this, I want this. Well, okay. Do you know how much that's going to cost you? I can represent you. We can try to get it one at a time. But it's an issue at a time in front of a judge if that's where we're going. And if it's not where we're going, it all depends on who the other side is. And a lot of times, I will tell you, opposing counsel, I find, very, very much plays a huge role in how the case moves forward, regardless of what the position, unfortunately, is for both sides. So client needs to get a reality check, which is what I do. And then if they still want to proceed and the costs are high, they can't complain because they know. They knew, they now know, and that's what it is. So the reality is it takes longer and it's not as simple most of the time.
As it seems.
As it seems.
Clients have a tendency of saying, let the judge decide. What does it actually mean in reality?
Oh my gosh, okay. This, if I can tell you, Arshad, is how many times my clients say this to me at different stages of the representation. This question actually is going to be so overloaded with information I want to share. So I'm going to try to compartmentalize it to give justice to this question, okay, for the viewers especially. I go back and I say, remember what we discussed. This is how we discuss how educating the client is so important. This is where I reference it and I say, okay, let's go and let's explore that option. Let the judge decide. What does that mean? Well, unfortunately, I'm going to have the talk about the fees, the costs, and then, they get all rattled up and they say, you know what, forget settling, forget agreement, call her and say that, the deal is off. I'm going to go see the judge. So I say, okay, hold on. Do we really want this? How much is it going to cost? Let's talk about it. And this is where the reality kicks in, where they sit back and say, you know what, I don't know if I want to pay that much for this issue. It's easy to get pissed off and say, you know what, I'm going to go and put this, in front of a judge. And I tell them, the judge doesn't know you. The judge doesn't know your life. By the time I present to the judge what your story is, that's going to be the issue here. And then let's talk about the fees. Now, is it everything? No. That's where the system comes in. How is the legal system designed comes at issue with what the client wants to have the judge hear. And so the reality check is they need to know how much are they looking at for this issue. And then once it sets in, they look at their bank account, they look at their kids, they look at their situation, they look at their work, they look at the emotional toll it's having on them, they refocus. So I allow the client to experience this because they end up making the right decision, and it makes my job that much more, for lack of a better word, comfortable and yeah. And so let the judge decide. That's one. The other one is, litigation. We have this tug all the time about, going in front of a judge. And keep in mind, family law is usually like a bench trial, even if you have it. There's only one person that gets to make this decision. And I always tell them, are you sure you want to put all this weight on that one person who you know, may judge you not the way that you want to be judged, okay? Because the other side might play dirty and present different facts. So there's so much that goes on. Then it's like, let me prepare them for what is to come. Let me prepare them about the reality. And once they have the expectations, and at that point, if they still want to be heard by the judge, I'm comfortable. Because they know exactly what to expect. They know what the consequences are that they could face, or likely to face, I should say. So yeah, that costs, I want to emphasize on how expensive and unfortunately how unnecessarily expensive it could get.
The importance of knowing your rights is crucial. Why?
The importance of knowing your rights. I had to say that again to echo it, because the first thing anyone forgets is their rights, because they're so invested in what they want. We have to step back again and educate them and say, well, what are you entitled to under the law? And this is where the client's expectation of the attorney, and unfortunately it's advertised a lot of the times, the shark attorney, I'm going to get you what you want. You know, I'm sorry, attorneys don't have a magic wand. And if you were misled into believing there's some kind of a magic wand, it doesn't work like that. Yes, your position can be strong. Your position can be represented in a very, very persuasive manner, but it must be supported by the law.
You can have meticulous arguments.
You can have meticulous arguments about it. And like I said, lawyers can be creative. Look, I've done my share. I'm not going to lie. I've done my share where it's kind of like, I'm going to go back to one of my professors in law school who would say, would give a fact pattern and say, okay, well, it's always a criminal fact pattern, right? Someone gets killed, did this guy do it? And the bottom line is, when you answer yes or no, it's the wrong answer. You're like, well, who am I representing? Whose side am I on? So if we want to go back to whose side am I on, the line and the interests gets fuzzy. Am I here for your interests or to show everybody how good I am and how persuasive I can get with the little facts that I have? It's not about my skill. Face it, I can do the job, but I choose not to do it that way. So I give them that reality as well, and then we go from there. So I hope I answered your question.
You did.
Okay.
You did, yeah. And we understand that knowing your rights is
so important, because if you're entitled to something, then you know what? More power. Let's fight. Let's go all the way. I'm even, my clients know this if they're watching. I dedicate my time. Sometimes I don't even charge because I believe in their rights so much. And once they know that they're entitled to something and it's worth fighting for, then sometimes the cost-effective analysis weighs in favor of moving forward. And those are the times where I am, the biggest advocate. Let's fight for your rights, because you have these rights. No one should tell you otherwise. And there's so many issues I can get into about, when it comes to their children. I tell my clients, I might be representing mom, and another time I might be representing dad, and they both have equal rights as parents. And I don't like to tell one client that, you know what, since you're my client, let me forget about the father's rights right now. I just want to, no, I will educate them on what the rights are. Dad has rights just like mom has rights, and they need to hear this to put perspective in their own personal life. So it's important on many levels. One, to give them perspective of what they actually should want, and then decide whether or not if they want to move forward with it and in which way.
Alice, unfortunately, the reality is attorney fee driven, and people are not informed, and the system doesn't have enough resources, even though today the picture has changed a little bit with the workshops.
That's true. The picture has changed quite a bit compared to, I don't know, about 10 years ago. But I'll tell you, it's unfortunate but true. I will not be somebody that's going to sugarcoat anything here. It is a lot of the times fee-driven, and that is the unfortunate part where lawyers like myself exist. We do exist. we're not
Thank
the
God.
majority. I like to say it, but we're not the majority. I always look at it like if I were to want an attorney, I honestly look at my clients and I tell them, I go, if I was sitting in that chair looking at an attorney with the knowledge that I have, I'd want this done to me. I would want what I do to you, is what I would want done to me. And so that's not the majority, let's face it. It is fee-driven, and like I said, with litigation, it's so easy to fight an issue. And don't forget, your clients are emotionally charged people who feel wronged or who feel that they need justice for whatever that they need. And if I'm the attorney that is going to just bypass everything that I talked about, it's going to cost a lot. I'm going to make a lot of money. And you know what? At the client's expense. And a lot of times they have property. So the attorneys are not even concerned about the fees because there's, methods of making sure you get paid. And so that is the unfortunate reality. But this is why when clients know, I want to tell them, be an advocate for yourself first.
My own takeaway from today's interview is learn to trust and follow the guidance of your own courageous heart. Would you agree?
I would agree because it just makes my, heart warm knowing and hearing you say this, because if I could inspire anybody or somebody, then I feel good. I feel like I did something that I helped. It's so good that you say it. Thank you.
Յուրաքանչյուրիս ձևավորման վրա մեծ ազդեցություն ունի մեր ժառանգությունը, մեր ընտանիքը, մեր համայնքը։ Մենք իմաստավորում ենք կյանքը մեր ընկալումներով ու գործերով։ Գործեր, որ կապրեն դարեդար։ Մարդկային հիշողությունը իսկական պարգև է։ Ամեն մի կյանք ստեղծում է իր սեփական ուղին։ Glendale Funeral Home հաստատությունը պատրաստ է ցուցաբերել հատուկ ուշադրություն իր բազմազան ծառայությունների շնորհիվ։